The train waited in the station like a shadow pretending to be solid. Its iron skin was dull, almost reluctant to reflect the dim lamps that flickered overhead. I remember stepping onto the platform and feeling as though I had arrived at a place that had been waiting far too long for me. There were no announcements, no staff, no other passengers shuffling about, only the faint hiss of steam escaping from somewhere deep within the engine. When I pulled the heavy carriage door open, the air inside was colder than the platform. A strange scent clung to the walls, metallic and damp, as though the seats themselves had soaked up the breath of forgotten travelers. My footsteps echoed far louder than they should have in the empty aisle, each one swallowed quickly, as though the train didn't want the sound to linger. I chose a seat near the window, though the glass was smeared with streaks I couldn't quite wipe away. The carriage lights flickered once and steadied, buzzing with a low, throbbing hum. It felt like the hum was coming not from the lights but from the walls themselves, as though the train was alive and breathing. The station outside had already begun to blur, not because the train moved, it hadn't, but because the world beyond the windows seemed to shift like an old painting being rubbed away. That was when the doors sealed shut behind me with a hiss too sharp, too final. The train gave a shudder, and though I hadn't seen the engine start, the car began to roll forward into a tunnel of blackness. And just like that, I realized I was not boarding a train to somewhere. I was boarding the train itself. The train moved as though it had no beginning and no destination, only endless momentum. At first there was the sound of the wheels clattering against the rails, a familiar rhythm I tried to cling to. But after only a few minutes, it began to falter. The steady song of travel, the heartbeat of any train, grew faint, then faltered again, then finally ceased altogether. The silence that followed was not natural. It wasn't simply the absence of sound, it was a silence that pressed against my skull, one that seemed to expand inside my ears until I could hear nothing, not even my own breathing. I opened my mouth to test it, to cough or to hum. But the noise I made seemed swallowed before it could exist. The lights above me flickered once more, dimmed, and steadied. And this time their buzz was gone. The hum I had felt in the walls during boarding was gone too, as though something vital had been drained from the carriage. I leaned against the window, searching for comfort in motion. But outside the glass there was only a smear of endless black, thicker than night, like paint dripping down a canvas. No stars. No distant lights. Not even a hint of the station I had left behind. I tried to stand, to reassure myself with the simple noise of my own footsteps. But when my shoe struck the floor it made no sound at all. The weight of it landed, the movement was real. But the noise never arrived. It was then I realized the silence was not merely the train's doing, it was the air itself. And in that silence, I thought I saw a reflection move in the window. Not my own, something seated behind me. When I turned, the carriage was still empty. But the silence did not let go. It deepened, stretched, and pressed harder. And though the train wanted me to listen not to sound, and to what hid beneath it, I stayed seated longer than I should have, staring at the faint reflection in the glass, waiting for it to betray itself again. My own face stared back at me, paler than usual, thinner, the eyes a little too sunken in the dim light. But then, for the smallest fraction of a second, it wasn't my face at all. The angle shifted, the jaw lengthened, the eyes sank deeper into hollows. A stranger looked at me from the pane, then disappeared the moment I blinked. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. Maybe the world outside would anchor me, remind me that there was something beyond this carriage. But there was no night sky, no blur of landscape, no signs of motion at all. The black outside wasn't darkness in the ordinary sense, it had weight, like tar or deep water, something thick and consuming that would smother whatever tried to enter it. It pressed against the glass like a living thing, testing the boundaries, as though it wanted inside. And yet, through that suffocating black, shapes began to form. At first they were faint, lines, angles, as though a city of ruins was taking shape just beyond the veil. Tall structures leaned at impossible angles, their outlines dissolving and reforming as though memory itself was trying to decide what they should look like. I thought I saw windows glimmering, rows of them, lit from within by some sickly yellow glow. Then came movement. Something passed in front of those phantom buildings, tall enough to block entire windows of light, its steps slow and deliberate. My chest tightened. It was walking parallel to the train. I could see the curve of its shoulder, the arc of its head bending unnaturally forward, the suggestion of arms far too long. It didn't rush, didn't stumble, it matched the train's pace perfectly. As though it had been keeping time with me for much longer than I'd realized. I jerked back from the glass, heart hammering against the silence. But no sound rewarded me. Only that still, swallowing air. When I glanced back, the figure was gone. But the ghostly building still glimmered, shifting, flickering, like memories that weren't mine. And for just a breath, I thought I saw faces at those phantom windows. Faces leaning outward. Watching. Waiting. When I turned away from the window, I wasn't alone anymore. The rows of seats that had been empty when I boarded were now filled with passengers, each one sitting unnaturally straight, their faces angled slightly downward as though they were bowing or asleep with their eyes half open. Not one of them stirred when I rose halfway from my seat. Not one of them breathed loud enough to disturb the smothering silence. They looked ordinary enough at first glance, suits, coats, scarves wound too tightly around necks, but their stillness made them wrong. Too wrong. The woman across from me had her hands folded neatly in her lap. But her fingers were curled inwards in impossible angles, each joint bent back like broken twigs. A man 3 rows up had his hat pulled low, yet his mouth was visible beneath it, hanging slightly open as though caught mid-whisper. The worst part wasn't that they appeared suddenly, it was that I could feel, with a certainty I couldn't explain, that they had been here all along. Sitting in the periphery of my vision, waiting for me to finally notice. I wanted to call out, to demand answers. But the silence smothered my words before they left my throat. My tongue moved, my lips shaped sound. But the air swallowed it whole, leaving me with nothing. And then, slowly, several of the passengers began to turn their heads. Not all at once. But in a wave, row by row. But though a signal had been given. Their eyes locked onto mine, not blinking, not curious, just fixed. As though recognizing me in a way I didn't understand. Something deep inside me knew, I had boarded their train. At the very back of the carriage, one figure was different. Unlike the others, who sat rigid and still, this one slumped across 2 seats. As though asleep. A thin wool blanket was draped over their body. And from beneath it came the faintest motion, the rise and fall of breath. I clung to that sight like salvation. Proof of life, proof that someone else was trapped in this hollow silence with me. I rose from my seat, moving slowly past the rows of watching eyes. Their heads didn't move, their gaze didn't break. But I could feel their stares crawling over my skin as I walked the aisle. When I reached the sleeper, I crouched low. The blanket shifted faintly with each breath, shallow but steady. Relief trembled through me. I reached out, fingers brushing the fabric, intent on shaking them awake. The blanket slid back. The face beneath was my own. Not as I was now, but as I had been years ago. Younger, unscarred, with a softness I had long since lost. My reflection lay sleeping, lips parted as though dreaming, a faint shadow of a smile still clinging to its mouth. I recoiled, stumbled backward. But the silence caught me. No scream, no sound of shoes scuffing against the floor, only the sleeper's breath, slow and steady, the only sound left on the train. I wanted to run. But the breath beneath the blanket began to quicken. And the other passengers, still watching, began to lean forward in unison. Panicked, I rushed forward, forcing myself past the frozen passengers. The next door slides open with a groan. And I step inside, bracing for more figures. But the carriage is deserted. Dust lies thick on every seat, cobwebs drape across the overhead racks like forgotten curtains. The air smells stale, heavy with disuse, as though no one has entered for years. The silence here is deeper, pressing into my ears until I can hear my own heartbeat echoing back at me. I run a hand over a seat, leaving a clean streak through the dust. Beneath my fingertips, the fabric crumbles, disintegrating like old paper. A shadow flickers across the far wall. But when I turn, nothing's there. Only rows of abandoned seats stretching into dimness. I step carefully down the aisle, each footfall stirring small clouds of dust. Something about the emptiness feels staged, like the carriage was prepared for me, awaiting. Then I notice it, a single footprint in the dust, fresh, leading deeper down the aisle. Not mine. Too large. Too heavy. And stopping halfway through. As if whatever left it simply vanished. The silence shatters with a sharp crackle above me. The speakers flicker to life, their static buzzing through the empty carriage. I freeze, every muscle locking tight. Then, through the static, a whisper threads itself into words. It says my name. Not once, but twice, low and urgent. But though someone is crouched right above me, speaking directly into my ear. The sound stretches, echoing, folding over itself until the syllables distort into something I barely recognize as mine. I glance up. The speaker grill is coated in grime, wires trembling faintly. The whisper comes again, more insistent now. We see you. Then silence. I wait, breath held. But no more words follow. Only the faint hum of static fading away. Yet I can't shake the certainty that whatever spoke through the speakers didn't vanish. It's listening, waiting for me to answer. The carriage door groans as you push it open. And for the first time, a faint smell greets you, or not the metallic tang of rails, not the damp wood of the carriages. And something sour, metallic, and stale, like meat left too long in the heat. You step inside, expecting chatter, clinking glasses. Or at least the hushed etiquette of late-night travelers eating alone. Instead, silence meets you again. But heavier. But if the very air refuses to carry sound. The dining car stretches out with immaculate order, rows of tables set with polished silverware, folded napkins. And meals laid out as though awaiting guests. Yet every plate is wrong. The food is untouched. But the bread has mold to green dust, the meat has rusted like iron left in rain. But the fruit has hardened into stone-like husks. Still, nothing has been disturbed, no bites, no forks out of place. It is a feast abandoned in perfect symmetry. You move closer, leaning over one of the plates. The fork rests at a perfect angle, the knife parallel. As if someone had set them down with ceremonial precision. You lift the glass of water. But it doesn't move like water. It ripples too slowly, clinging to the glass as though it's thicker than liquid. You set it down quickly, the faintest thunk echoing far too loudly in the silence. Every lantern in the carriage sways once. As if disturbed by a gust of wind. As the air is still. The unease grows sharper. You pass more tables, each meal identical in decay, each seat perfectly tucked in. It feels like you've entered a photograph that refuses to fade, a snapshot of something that ended long ago yet refuses to release itself. At the very end of the car, you notice one table is different. The meal is untouched, yes. But the silverware isn't rusted. It gleams as though freshly polished. The napkin is still white. And the plate is not empty. On it lies a single object, a folded piece of paper. You hesitate, hand trembling, before sliding it closer. The paper is thick, yellowed, almost brittle, yet the ink looks fresh. 2 words are scrawled in heavy black strokes, your name. Not just your name, but the exact way you sign it, crooked letters and all. You don't remember ever writing it. You don't remember leaving it here. But it waits for you, set on porcelain. As though you've been expected. And for the first time since you boarded, you are certain of something. Someone else has been here, not just sitting silently like the other passengers, not just watching, but preparing. The folded paper lingers in your hand, heavy with meaning though it weighs almost nothing. You slip it into your pocket without unfolding it further, afraid of what else might be written inside. The silence of the dining car presses in, too thick to endure. You back away. And the carriage door closes behind you with a slow, deliberate click. And though sealing off the feast forever, the next carriage is darker. The lanterns along its length flicker low, bathing everything in thin, shivering light. At first it looks like another passenger car, rows of windows lining one side, seats running the length of the other. But as you step further in, you notice the glass isn't behaving like glass. The windows don't reveal the blur of the night landscape or the streak of trees flashing past. Instead, each pane of glass reflects the interior of the train itself, your carriage, your body moving forward, your hand brushing along the rail. They are mirrors. Every window has become a flawless, silent mirror. At first, it seems harmless, just reflections. But then you notice something wrong. The angle is perfect, too perfect. No matter where you move, the reflection doesn't shift naturally. The mirrored you always stand centered, always staring back, no delay in movement, no distortion of glass. You raise your hand. And your reflection does the same. But when you lower it, the reflection holds a second longer, fingers twitching unnaturally. As though it forgot the rhythm of your body. A cold chill creeps over you. You press your hand against one of the mirrors. It's warm. Not like glass should be. Warm. As though another palm presses back from the other side. And just as your skin makes contact, your reflection smiles. Not you, your lips are frozen in unease. But the mirrored version lifts into a grin so wide it splits unnaturally across its face. You recoil, stumbling into the aisle. But the mirrored figure doesn't stop. Each window along the carriage now shows the same warped smile, dozens of them, all of you, staring and grinning and watching. And then, as one, they move without you. They lean closer to the glass, pressing against it, their faces flattening slightly, their breath fogging the surface. They don't follow your movements anymore. They're free. One reflection places its hand against the glass again. And this time, the pane ripples like water disturbed by a stone. The glass bends inward. A sound like cracking ice crawls through the carriage as fractures splinter across every window. But none of them break completely. They hold just enough to show the possibility that they want to come through, that the thin layer of glass is no longer a boundary, just a veil. The lanterns overhead flicker harder, almost extinguishing. And for a heartbeat the carriage plunges into total darkness. When the light returns, the reflections are gone. The mirrors show only you again, pale, shaking, small against the endless stretch of glass. But in the silence that follows, you can hear something breathing in rhythm with you, not inside your chest, but just behind the glass, waiting. The next door slides open with a reluctant grind. And for the first time since you boarded, you hear footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy against the wooden floor. You freeze, your breath catching. The sound comes from ahead, from the next carriage, growing louder with each step. And then he appears, the conductor. The same uniform, the same cap, the same hollow smile you glimpsed at the very beginning. But his face is wrong. His skin is paler than memory, stretched taut across his bones. And his eyes glisten like dark pools with no reflection. He doesn't walk like a man. His movements are too smooth, too steady. As though gliding rather than stepping. He stops in the middle of the carriage, tilts his head. And waits. In his hand, he carries a lantern. Its light doesn't flicker like the others. It burns steady, unwavering. And far too bright, throwing long shadows across the seats and windows. shadows that twitch as though alive, bending at unnatural angles. He doesn't speak, but the silence around him is heavier than the voice you heard in the speakers. It demands obedience without sound. Slowly, he lifts his free hand and gestures, a single crook of his finger. An invitation. Or perhaps a command. And though every part of you screams to turn and run back through the dining car, your body leans forward, compelled, your steps echoing louder than they should in the still air. The conductor's lips move, but no sound emerges. Instead, the carriage itself seems to whisper, the walls vibrating with a voice not spoken but carved into the air. Your ticket, please. And you realize with a sinking weight, you never had one. You leave the dining car behind, the stench of rust and stale decay still clinging to your clothes. The aisle narrows as you press forward, the soft groan of the train vibrating through the floor beneath your feet. Ahead, the passage is blocked. Heavy chains coil around the next door like veins of iron, padlocks bulging like tumors in the dim light. You tug once. Then again. Then the metal holds fast, unmoving. Then if it were part of the train itself. A faint sound hums behind it, not the rhythm of wheels, not wind. But something deeper, slower, like breathing. The kind of breathing you don't want to hear too close. You step back. And the door rattles of its own accord, links straining as if something inside has leaned against it. The unease drives you to action. The emergency brake hangs above the aisle, a relic of safety, a promise of control. You grip it with both hands and pull. For a moment, you feel resistance, the illusion that it might still work, and then it disintegrates in your grip, crumbling like brittle bone. Dust sprinkles down your sleeves, the handle reduced to fragments that cut faintly into your palms. The train doesn't even shudder. Its speed does not change. You look around, expecting the passengers to stir, to notice. But they remain statues, heads bowed, breaths woven together in that same eerie unison. The useless shards in your hand feel like a warning. This train has no brakes. In the next carriage, the silence is fractured by the softest sound, the slow, uneven breath of a child. She sits alone, impossibly small in a seat too large for her, legs dangling without touching the floor. Her head rests against the window, eyes closed. As if dreaming. In her hands, clutched tightly, is a single slip of paper. A ticket. You lean closer and freeze, it bears your name. Not a resemblance, not a mistake. Your name, printed clearly in black ink. The child's fingers twitch around it, holding tighter. As if protecting it from you. For a moment, you think she will wake. But she only exhales softly and shifts deeper into sleep. The paper crinkles with her movement. And you realize you want it back, though you don't know why. The next door slides open without a sound, spilling a dim, golden glow into the corridor. You step inside and are engulfed in flickering light. Hundreds of lanterns dangle from the ceiling, swaying in unison though no wind touches them. Their glow breathes with rhythm, brightening and dimming as though inhaling, exhaling. The light catches your face in fragments, reflection after reflection across the brass and glass, each glimmer shaping your shadow into something taller, stranger. As you walk, the lanterns tilt toward you, a forest of glass eyes turning, following, bending down as if to study you closer. The soft creak of the lantern hooks keeps time with your footsteps. As though the whole carriage has been waiting for you to pass. At the far end of the lantern carriage, the light dims, narrowing into shadow. From that shadow, he steps forward, tall, gaunt, his uniform eaten away by time and rot. His cap is tilted low, his face obscured. But his presence is undeniable. In one hand, a puncher rusted black. His other hand stretches toward you, palm open, waiting. His voice is a hollow rasp, yet it does not echo in the air, it echoes inside your chest. Ticket, please. You look down at your empty hands, knowing you never received one. But you remember the child. You remember the slip of paper with your name clutched tightly in her grip. The conductor tilts his head, patient but expectant. The lanterns above flicker once, as if holding their breath. The silence between you and the conductor is broken by a sound behind you, soft, hesitant footsteps. You turn. And there she is, the child from the earlier carriage. Only now, her eyes are open, wide and shining, though not with innocence. She holds the ticket out toward you, the paper trembling in her hand. Your name is still there. But now the ink seems darker, wet, but if freshly written. She doesn't speak, only stares at you with an expression that's neither fear nor kindness. The ticket crinkles in her grip as she raises it higher, almost urging you to take it. But when you reach for it, she pulls back. Her lips part slightly. And for the first time you hear her whisper, soft as the hiss of steam, "Not yet." Then she turns, vanishing into the lanterns, leaving you with the conductor's outstretched hand and a hollow ache in your chest. The conductor lowers his arm but does not move aside. You press onward into the next carriage, its air colder, the walls slick with condensation. The windows here are wrong. Instead of landscapes sliding past, they reveal only endless black, a void so complete it swallows the light. You lean closer to one, your breath misting the glass. At first it's only your reflection staring back, pale, stretched, but then it shifts. Its lips move though yours stay still. The reflection raises its hand and taps once against the other side, the sound reverberating as if from inside your skull. You stagger back. But the reflection does not falter. It smiles with your mouth. But not your intent. But slowly, it begins to turn away, walking into the void as if leaving you behind. You stumble into another seat-filled carriage. But this one is not empty. A single passenger sits upright, hands folded neatly on their lap. Their suit is immaculate, pressed and gleaming under the dim lamps. Yet their face, it isn't there. No eyes, no mouth, only smooth skin where features should be. Still, you feel them watching you. When you step closer, they tilt their head. And in a voice that should be impossible without a mouth, they whisper, "You don't belong here." The words tremble inside your chest, vibrating against your ribs. You blink. And the faceless passenger raises their hand, slow, deliberate, pointing toward the far door. Not as guidance, but as dismissal. You're not welcome in this place. And yet, you have nowhere else to go. The next door opens with a hiss of static. And sound floods the air. Radios line the walls, stacked in crooked towers, each one sputtering with broken voices, fragments of news, prayers, cries, and screams. The air is thick with their distortion. One radio crackles your name, another repeats it. Then a third. Soon, every voice is chanting it at once, overlapping, warping. You clap your hands to your ears. But the sound is inside your head. The radios flicker with faint light, like eyes opening and closing. And in between their bursts of static you hear it, a long, piercing whistle, distant but drawing nearer, threading through the chaos as though marking time. Here the world seems to corrode. The walls sag under layers of rust, metal peeling like diseased skin. The seats crumble as you pass, collapsing into heaps of flaked iron dust. The floor bends, buckles beneath your steps, threatening to give way. The air burns your lungs, each inhale laced with the taste of rot. You pause at one seat that hasn't dissolved completely. And see your name carved deep into the corroded frame, gouged again and again as if someone tried to erase it but failed. Beneath your name, faint but visible, another word is etched, return. The meaning claws at you. But before you can dwell, the rust shifts, groans. But the carriage itself seems to breathe. At the far end of the rusted carriage, beyond the sagging beams and walls flaking into ruin, a figure waits. It is neither the conductor nor the child. Taller than both, wrapped in layers of dark fabric that writhe as though alive, the watcher stands utterly still. No face is visible beneath its hood, only the void where a face should be. And yet you feel its gaze pierce you, stripping you bare. The closer you step, the heavier the air becomes, as though pressing you into the floor. The watcher does not speak. It only raises one skeletal hand, pointing again at the next door, echoing the faceless passenger's gesture. But unlike them, the watcher's command is not dismissal, it is inevitability. You have no choice but to move forward. Here, everything is fractured. The ceiling splits, revealing glimpses of a sky that does not belong to this world. The windows shatter and mend themselves in endless loops. The floor splinters, jagged cracks glowing faintly as if something beneath is alive. The train itself groans, pulled apart by forces you cannot see. You stumble, clutching at the walls. But even they are unsteady, bending inward then outward as though the carriage is breathing. Every step feels like walking on the edge of collapse. And through it all, the sound of the whistle grows louder, clearer, almost beckoning you to the end. The noise vanishes the moment you enter the next space. A silence so profound it crushes your thoughts, pressing against your skull. Your own heartbeat is thunderous in the void, your breath too loud, too alive. The seats here are full, rows upon rows of passengers. But none of them move. They are too still, too perfect. As though carved from wax. Their eyes are closed, their faces serene. But their chests do not rise, their lungs do not work. The silence is a weight, a warning. And when you look too long at one passenger, you swear their lips twitch, mouthing words you cannot hear. At the end of the silence carriage, the next door yawns open before you. No handle, no resistance, just wide and waiting. Beyond it, darkness unfurls, dense and swallowing. For the first time, the path ahead feels like choice. You could stop. You could turn back. But behind you, the silence stretches too long, too heavy. And the door calls like a mouth waiting to consume. You step through. And the air drops away, leaving only the sensation of falling. And your feet still touch solid ground. The darkness peels back, not into another strange chamber, but into something familiar. This carriage looks like home, or rather, it wears the shape of your home. The walls are lined with wallpaper you recognize, the chairs arranged just as you remember. Photographs hang crookedly, their frames rattling with the movement of the train. But when you lean closer, the faces are wrong. Blurred, erased, or replaced by strangers' eyes staring back. A voice whispers from one of the seats, your voice, speaking words you don't recall ever saying. Each corner of this carriage holds pieces of you, scattered like shards of broken glass. The next space will not hold still. The walls stretch and compress, the seats rearrange themselves, the windows open onto landscapes that flicker between forest, ocean, desert, void. You stagger, clutching at whatever surface remains solid in the moment. But the carriage twists like a dream unraveling. Sometimes the aisle extends endlessly, sometimes it vanishes altogether. The whistle cuts through it, steady, unyielding, a thread in the chaos. It guides you forward, even as the train itself refuses to stay one shape. Heat scorches your skin before you even step inside. Flames lick the walls. But the fire does not consume. The seats burn endlessly, their fabric curling into black, yet they remain whole, reborn in fire again and again. Ash drifts in the air. But it never falls, suspended in place like a constellation of ruin. You walk carefully, each breath searing, your lungs roar. In the center of the aisle, the child appears once more, her eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. She holds out the ticket again. And this time she presses it into your palm. The paper is hot, smoldering. But it does not burn. Written across it now are not only your name but also the words, "One way." Every surface here gleams, fragile and transparent. The walls, the ceiling, even the floor beneath your feet, all glass, stretching outward into endless night. With each step, crack spiderweb under your weight, thin at first. then deeper, branching outward until they reach the edges of the carriage. The stars beneath the glass swirl, shifting into faces, shapes, memories you can't quite place. You clutch the ticket tighter, and the cracks freeze, holding back collapse, but for how long? The whistle wails, closer now, louder, promising an end. Finally, the endless march reaches its final chamber. There are no seats here, no passengers, only emptiness stretching before you. At the far end stands the conductor once again, lantern light flickering weakly around him. He raises the puncher in one hand, waiting. The child stands at his side, her eyes fixed on you, unreadable. You hold out the ticket. Your name burns on its surface, the ink trembling as though alive. The conductor takes it, slides the rusted puncher through it. And the sound it makes is not metal on paper, and bone snapping. The whistle shrieks, so close it rattles your teeth. The train slows. Not with a jolt, not with screeching brakes, but with a sigh. But though exhaling its last breath. The lanterns dim, the walls settle, the voices fade. The conductor tips his cap, and the child turns away. The door behind them opens to nothingness, no station, no ground, only endless dark. The whistle blows one final time, stretching into forever. And as you step forward, the floor dissolves beneath your feet. The train, the passengers, the world itself unravels. You fall into silence, into the void, into whatever waits beyond the tracks. And then, there is nothing.